I do not regret what I said to you because I am living with someone else." The words hung in the air like a noose, tightening around my chest with every breath I took. I stood there, staring at her, unable to comprehend what she had just said. The woman I had loved, cherished, and devoted my life to, was standing in front of me, her eyes cold and distant, uttering words that felt like a death sentence. "I do not regret what I said to you, because I am living with someone else." I felt the ground shift beneath my feet as if the very foundation of my life was crumbling away. Emily, my wife, the woman I had fought so hard to keep, was now telling me that she had moved on, that she was living with someone else, and she didn't regret it. "Emily," I whispered, my voice trembling. "What are you saying? How could you do this?" She looked at me, her gaze unflinching, as if she had already made peace with her decision. There was no hesitation in her eyes, no hint of the woman who had once promised to love me for the rest of her life. "I told you, Michael," she said, her tone devoid of emotion. "I can't keep living a lie. I found someone else, someone who makes me happy. And I don't regret it." My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces, each one sharp and jagged, cutting deep into my soul. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. We had gone through so much, fought so hard to save our marriage, and now she was telling me it had all been for nothing. "Is this really what you want?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "To throw away everything we've built together? To walk away from the life we've shared?" She sighed, as if tired of the conversation, and shook her head. "Michael, this isn't about you. It's about me. I've changed. I'm not the same person I was when we got married. I need something different now, something more." "More," I echoed, disbelief coloring my words. What could be more than the life we've built together? The memories, the love, the commitment. Does that mean nothing to you?" "It does mean something," she admitted, her voice softening for the first time. "But it's not enough anymore. I'm sorry, Michael. I never wanted to hurt you, but I can't stay in a marriage that's no longer making me happy." I felt like I was drowning, caught in a whirlpool of emotions that I couldn't escape. How had it come to this? How had the woman I loved more than life itself become a stranger, standing before me, telling me she had found happiness with someone else? "Who is he?" I asked, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "Who is this man you've chosen over me?" "It doesn't matter," she replied, her voice firm. "What matters is that I'm moving on. I'm choosing to live my life the way I want to, with someone who makes me feel alive again." "Alive," I repeated, the word a painful reminder of all the times I had tried to make her feel that way. All the efforts, the sacrifices, the love. Was it all for nothing? "Yes, alive," she said, her gaze steady. "I know this is hard for you to understand, but I need you to accept it. I'm not coming back, Michael. I'm not going to apologize for finding happiness." I stood there, frozen, as her words continued to tear me apart. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was a complete and utter rejection of everything we had shared. She wasn't just leaving me, she was erasing me from her life, as if I had never meant anything to her. "And what about us?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. "What about the vows we made? The promises? Does that mean nothing to you?" She looked away, as if the weight of my words was too much to bear. "It's not that simple, Michael. People change, circumstances change. We were different people when we made those vows. I can't stay in a marriage that no longer fits who I am." Her words stung, each one a reminder of how much she had changed, how much we had drifted apart. But even as the pain threatened to consume me, a part of me knew she was right. We had both changed, we had both made mistakes, but I wasn't ready to give up on us. Not yet. "Emily," I said, taking a step closer to her, "we can work through this. We've been through worse before. We can find our way back to each other. Please, don't walk away from us." She shook her head, her expression resolute. "I've already made up my mind, Michael. I'm leaving. And I don't regret it." The finality of her words hit me like a sledgehammer, knocking the wind out of me. She was leaving. She was really leaving. And there was nothing I could do to stop her. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why did you let me think we still had a chance?" "Because I didn't want to hurt you," she admitted, her eyes finally showing a glimmer of the woman I had once known. "I didn't want to cause you more pain than I already have. But I can't keep pretending, Michael. I can't keep lying to myself, or to you." I felt the tears welling up in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I couldn't show her how much this was breaking me. I couldn't give her that power. "So this is it," I said, my voice hollow. "You're just going to walk away and there's nothing I can do to change your mind." She nodded, her expression sad but determined. "I'm sorry, Michael, but this is what I need to do. For both of us." I wanted to scream, to beg her to stay, to tell her that we could make it work, but the words caught in my throat. I knew it would be futile. She had already made her decision, and nothing I could say would change that. "Then go," I finally said, my voice barely a whisper. "If that's what you want, then go." She hesitated for a moment, as if she was waiting for me to say something else, to give her a reason to stay. But I had nothing left to give. I was empty, hollowed out by the pain of her betrayal. "Goodbye, Michael," she said softly, before turning and walking out of the door, out of my life. I stood there, staring at the empty space where she had been, the silence deafening in its finality. She was gone. The woman I had loved, the life we had built together, the future we had planned, it was all gone. For a long time I didn't move. I couldn't. I was paralyzed by the weight of what had just happened, by the reality that my marriage, my life had just been torn apart in the span of a few minutes. When I finally moved, it was like a dam had broken. The tears I had been holding back flooded my vision, and I collapsed onto the bed, my body racked with sobs. I cried for everything I had lost, for the love that had slipped through my fingers, for the life that would never be the same. I didn't know how long I lay there, crying into the pillow, the darkness of the room closing in around me. But eventually the tears slowed, leaving me empty and exhausted. I stared up at the ceiling, my mind a swirling mess of emotions: grief, anger, disbelief, but most of all, a deep, aching sadness. Emily was gone, and she wasn't coming back. In the days that followed, I went through the motions of life, but everything felt dull, colorless. The world had lost its vibrancy, its meaning, and I was just a shadow of the person I had once been. I went to work, I ate, I slept, but it was all mechanical, like I was just going through the motions, waiting for something to change. But nothing did. Weeks passed, then months, and the reality of Emily's departure began to sink in. She had moved on and I was left behind, stuck in a life that no longer made sense. I tried to find solace in the things I had once enjoyed: hobbies, friends, work, but everything felt empty, meaningless without her. The house we had shared was filled with memories, each one a painful reminder of what I had lost. I couldn't escape them: the photos on the walls, the furniture we had picked out together, the bed where we had once slept side by side. Everywhere I looked, I saw her, felt her absence like a gaping wound that refused to heal. One evening, as I was sitting alone in the living room, a glass of whiskey in my hand, I heard a knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment I considered ignoring it. But something made me get up, made me walk to the door and open it. Standing on the doorstep was Emily. She looked different, tired, worn down, like the weight of the world was pressing down on her. But she was still beautiful, still the woman I had loved with all my heart. "Michael," she said softly, her voice trembling. "Can I come in?" I stared at her, the anger and hurt bubbling up inside me like a volcano ready to erupt. But there was something in her eyes, something that made me step aside and let her in. She walked into the living room, glancing around as if seeing the house for the first time. "It hasn't changed," she murmured, almost to herself. "Why are you here, Emily?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "What do you want?" She turned to face me, her eyes filled with a sadness that mirrored my own. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry for what I did, for how I left. I made a mistake." I felt my heart clench at her words, the pain of her betrayal still fresh in my mind. "A mistake," I repeated, bitterness seeping into my voice. "Is that all it was to you? A mistake?" Tears welled up in her eyes and she nodded. "Yes, Michael, it was the biggest mistake of my life. I thought I wanted something different, something more. But I was wrong. I was so wrong." I stared at her, struggling to process what she was saying. "So what? You just realized you made a mistake and decided to come back? After all the damage you've done?" She flinched at my words, but she didn't back down. "I know I hurt you, Michael. I know I broke your heart, and I'll never forgive myself for that. But I had to come back, to tell you that I'm sorry, that I still love you." The anger that had been simmering inside me erupted, and I couldn't hold back any longer. "Love me? You love me? After everything you've done, after you walked out on me, you think you can just come back and say you love me?" "Michael, please," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know how sorry I am, how much I regret what I did. I thought I was doing the right thing, but all I did was ruin everything." I wanted to lash out, to tell her how much she had hurt me, how her betrayal had shattered my world. But as I looked at her, standing there broken and vulnerable, something inside me softened. The anger began to ebb away, replaced by a deep, aching sadness. "Why now, Emily?" I asked, my voice raw with emotion. "Why are you telling me this now?" She wiped her tears away, her hands trembling. "Because I can't live with the guilt anymore. I can't live with the knowledge that I hurt the one person who ever truly loved me. I don't expect you to forgive me, Michael, but I needed to tell you how much I regret what I did. I'm so sorry." For a long time we stood there in silence, the weight of her words pressing down on us. I could see the pain in her eyes, the regret etched into every line of her face. She was truly sorry, and for the first time I could see just how much she was suffering. But even as the anger began to fade, the hurt remained. The betrayal, the abandonment, it wasn't something that could be erased with an apology. It wasn't something that could be fixed with words. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Emily," I finally said, my voice trembling. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again."
She nodded, her shoulders slumping in defeat. "I understand. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I needed to tell you. I needed you to know that I'm sorry."
I looked at her. The woman I had once loved with all my heart, now standing before me, broken and regretful. A part of me wanted to reach out to her, to hold her and tell her that everything would be okay. But another part of me, the part that had been shattered by her betrayal, couldn't find the strength to do it. "Maybe one day," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe one day I'll be able to forgive you. But right now, I just need time." She nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "I understand, Michael. I'll give you all the time you need." With that, she turned and walked toward the door. But before she left, she paused, turning back to look at me one last time. "I never stopped loving you, Michael, and I'm so sorry for everything." And then she was gone, leaving me alone in the empty house, the silence once again closing in around me. I stood there for a long time, her words echoing in my mind, the weight of what she had said pressing down on me. Could I forgive her? Could I ever trust her again? I didn't know. But as I stood there, staring at the door she had just walked through, I realized that maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance for us. It wouldn't be easy, and it would take time, maybe more time than I was ready to give. But deep down I knew that the love I had for her, the love that had been buried under layers of hurt and anger, was still there, waiting to be rediscovered. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to start again.